Hey, gorgeous women in business, are you still working those 10, 11, 12, maybe even more hour days? I'm Chris Piccone from Lit Up Women Leaders, and I assist women to reignite their career mojo and promote their work to attract brilliant opportunities. Now, the reason why we tend to get into these patterns, these cycles of excessive work, is for a whole variety of reasons, which I can't go into in this video in detail, but let's just narrow this down and really dial this into one particular reason that I see that's common with all of the women that I coach, all of the women that I mentor, and everyone that I come across in the business world. And that is that we are not articulate enough with our language in order to set clear boundaries and expectations so that we can minimize our workload and really cut through the noise and cut through the distractions and cut through other people imposing what they think is important on you. And this comes down to, yes, Stephen Covey's time management matrix and the whole delete, dump, delegate, all of that. But when we get really articulate and really clear and are able to set really crystal clear boundaries with the people around us as to our expectations, what we want of them, how much we trust them, what we expect of them, then it's far easier for you to spend less time in those cyclical conversations that where you go around and around and don't actually get to an outcome, don't actually get to a point, don't actually get to a resolve or a resolution. And also all of those conversations that are repeated so often. So you can start to avoid those by getting really clear about the language and, standing firm in knowing that you can tell people what you want. You can be very clear about what it is that you expect of them. And I tend to coach my women to ask at the end of every conversation where you've delegated something or you've helped someone in some way or you've trained them or you've asked something of them, the clinker question, the one question, the piece of gold that gets response and accountability every single time is, when do you think you could have that to me by? Or when do you think you could do that for me by? Or when do you think you could get that back to me in your own language? But those first key words are, when do you think? And then if they're quick to answer and it seems like they're going to get it done quickly, but you have that niggling feeling in your gut, that's when you ask, and what might be an impediment to that? Or what might change that? Or what might be the challenge to you actually getting it done by then? And so when you ask those two key questions of people at the end of every conversation, at the end of every delegation, at the end of every request, you can start to use that accountability in the next conversations that you have with them. It is such a simple strategy that is often overlooked. And I guarantee if you do that, you will save yourself time over your working week having these continued conversations with people that you're relying on to help you get things done, that you're relying on to deliver on something, that you're relying on for their contribution on your piece of work. You can absolutely short track and cut out a lot of those conversations where you're repeatedly going back and asking people, how are you going? Have you done it? When can you do it? When can you get it to me by? All of those types of conversations. Also, when you're crystal clear in your language in the first place about what it is that you want, and you seek understanding from that person in that conversation, then it cuts out again all of those door knocks where they come back to you repeatedly and go, oh, just one more thing on that. Oh no, I forgot to ask. And oh, by the way, and I didn't ask you, or you didn't tell me, or I'm just unsure about. So really being clear in your language about what your expectations are, what the boundaries are. So, if there are restrictions or there is a scope within which they need to work for this particular piece of work you're asking of them, then state that up front. Be very clear. quite often we don't get the results that we want because we're not able to articulate what it is that we want. So when you're going into these conversations, it's a good idea for you to first prep them. So think about in your mind how you're going to delegate this, how you're going to communicate this, what you want to say in terms of your boundaries and expectations, and how you're going to frame up those two questions at the end for accountability. And they are, when do you think you could get that to me by? And then what might be a barrier or an impediment to that? And if you start to implement those across every conversation, every meeting, every delegation situation, I can guarantee you will start to cut down those 10, 12, 13 hour days into much more manageable days where you can start to buy back your time and own your time for yourself. That's all I've got for you now. See you next time.